The movies that you are best known for in those early years in Hollywood were the Capra films. Tell us about Frank Capra.
But those pictures, when they first did, You Can't Take It With You, was on loan out, and Capra just he had it. He had it. It was all his own. It's different. Nobody's able to sort of create the thing that he did. I don't think so.
And what was it? Was it the writing? Was it the way he worked with actors? Was it the editing? What was special about it?
I think it was that Capra himself has certain values that he learned as a kid, that he was born with. I don't know, but he had certain values. He had family and community and love of country and love of God, and he's able to put those values up on the screen, which is a remarkable thing when you think about it.
How was he like to work with as an actor? I mean, did he give you a lot of input? Did he run a really dictatorial set?
No, it was very quiet and very. He does all those things that I said, those values that he has. But one of the main things he has that is really quite rare, he does it with humor. And I remember It's a Wonderful Life, the first picture I did after I got out of the war. It was just no script, no nothing. So somebody had written him a letter, and in the letter, he, for some reason, had said just a phrase, "No man is poor if he has friends." And then another phrase, "Nobody's born to be a failure." And with those two things, Capra took the two. I'll never forget. I wasn't under contract at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer anymore. My contract ran out during the war. And Fonda and I were just sort of sitting and wondering how things were going to come out, and flying kites and building model airplanes. But Capra called me up and he said, I've got an idea for a picture. Why don't you come over and let me tell you? Well, I couldn't get over fast enough. And he said, "No, this is just this fellow's in a small town, and he's going to kill himself. And there's an angel named Clarence, and he hasn't his wings yet. And he comes down, and you're going to jump off the bridge, but Clarence comes down, and he jumps in the water, but Clarence can't swim, so you say," he said, "This doesn't sound very good, does it?" I said, Frank, if you want somebody to play a fellow that's going to kill himself, and the Clarence is an angel that hasn't won his wings yet, I'm your man, please, which I think is the wisest decision I ever made.
I've heard that that's your favorite movie, It's a Wonderful
Yeah.
Life. Why?
Well, I just think for those reasons that it wasn't from a play, it wasn't from an actual happening, and it wasn't from a book. It was from those two thoughts. That's it. That's 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 the way it. Of course, he gave the two thoughts to Hackett and Goodrich, and in 6 weeks they had the script. But here again, the values that he was able to put up there on the screen, you know, genius isn't a word that should be battled around or everything, but I think he approaches it.
He was also, though, wasn't he? I mean, a wonderful filmmaker. I mean, it's not just a lot of people have good ideas, but I mean, he realized them so beautifully, and the way he cut and edited. I mean, he was a terrific movie maker.
One of the finest. But I'm saying, getting these values that he has and getting them up there on the screen so that visually the audience, it gets to the audience.
Did he direct a lot? Did he kind of leave you alone? How was he in that sense, as a director to an actor?
He didn't direct a lot. He didn't he made sure that you sort of understood the scene. He was every once in a while he'd come up and say, "Now, Jim, this is all right, but it's not funny enough." No, I hadn't thought about that the scene should have any funny stuff in it. But the minute he suggested it, I said, yeah. I knew what he meant, and this I think makes him in a sort of a class by himself. That he was using those values that I said and putting them up there with humor. This is a and he has his when he says cut in the camera, if he doesn't like it, he'll come up and tell you so, and not just in general terms. No, he'll tell you why he doesn't like it. I'll never forget in Mr. Smith, they I don't know how many weeks I talked in the filibuster thing, but it was getting sort of near the end, and I was supposed to, I'd been talking so long that I supposed to lose my voice. And Frank came up to me at the end of the day one time, and he said, "Jim, you sound like what you're doing. You're talking like this. You're not convincing me that you have a sore throat." And I thought on the way home, I said, "Gee, that's I know. I'm just doing that. What?" And I didn't. And I got a little desperate about the thing, and I stopped at a doctor I knew. This wouldn't go with the method acting at all. I stopped at a doctor I knew, and I said, "Could you give me a sore throat?" He said, "I've heard you Hollywood people are a bunch of crazy nuts, but you take the cake. It's taken me 15 years to learn, and by practice, to learn how to cure sore throats, and to keep people from having them. And you come in here and ask me if I'll give you a sore throat." He said, "I'll give you the sorest throat you ever had." So took a tube, bichloride of mercury, and not near my vocal cords or anything, but put it down. And he said, "Now," well, of course, and I said, "Yeah, that's fine." Well, he was so amazed and fascinated with this that I'd come in, and I don't know what had happened to his practice the next day, but when I got to the studio, he was there in my dressing room. He said, this wears off, and I thought I'd better come down, and during the day, every once in a while I'd come in and I'd say, Doc, it's getting better. And he'd say, okay, bring them on. I said, no, that's fine. That's great. But as I say, the actor's studio wouldn't approve of that and everything, but I knew what Frank meant, and Frank never mentioned it. I didn't tell him.
You didn't tell him how you'd gone to the doctor. He thought,
no.
My God, he's really gotten the point. And he's...
No, but Frank, he didn't say anything, and I just decided not to tell him.
You once said that actors create tiny pieces of time that people never forget. And going back to It's a Wonderful Life, one of them that you talk about, in fact, I think you've said that it's one of your favorite scenes ever, is the one in the bar after you've yelled at somebody and they hit you and you start looking up and praying to God, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that I've noticed it over the years with the fans, with people. It can happen any place. Somebody will come up to me and say, I've seen a lot of your pictures, and some of them are pretty good, but the one I like the best, you were in this room, and this guy, you just had an argument with him and everything. He couldn't remember the picture. He couldn't remember who it was in it. Couldn't remember the story or anything. He said something to you, and you resented it, and you turned on him. And that look you gave him, I thought I knew exactly the picture. I knew exactly the guy. I knew exactly when I shot it, and I knew that was a moment that worked. So that's I think Peter Bogdanovich and I were talking about it, and I said about the little piece of time. I think it's true. I think it's true in the theater too. It can be all sorts of things. It can be a statement, a movement. It can be a look. It's a little more effective in the movie because you can get up close for the reaction.
Are there certain tiny pieces of time in your movies that you remember? You remember that you think that was good?
Well, that one in It's a Wonderful Life. That was one I remember.
Describe that just briefly, if you will. I mean, what the scene is.
Well, you were right. I was in this bar, and I'd called this guy's wife up and raised Cain with her about something and everything. And his wife had evidently told him about it. And I was there, and so somebody called me George Bailey, and he turned and he said, "Oh, you're George Bailey, you called my wife," and so and so. And so he let me have it, and that was when I got up and just was about ready to do it and just look up and a few words of prayer.
Se nel mio cuore, oh Paola, voglio cantare una canzone d'amore.
God. Oh, God. Dear Father in heaven, I'm not a praying man, but if you're up there and you can hear me, show me the way. I'm at the end of my rope. Show me the way, oh God.
Any other scenes that you remember like that? Special moments that are your favorites?
Well, that's several times in westerns. Western, I remember one I was in real trouble. I ran into a bunch of guys. We were doing it up in Wyoming someplace. And they were trying to figure out how to get me down because there were quite a few of them. And they didn't want to kill me, but well, I forget exactly what it was. But I think that there was a fireplace with it, and the fire almost out on it. I said, why doesn't somebody lasso me and pull me off my horse and then pull me through the fire? So that's all right. So we worked it all right and got the pieces of wood out of the fire and everything, and pulled me off the horse, and the camera was behind well, just to one side was the guy that was that had lassoed me and was pulling me off. But then, as I went through the fire, the camera came back at me, just looking up, which was very effective.
Sounds it.
Yeah.
Sounds it.
He was friendly to everyone he met. Everyone admired the fearless stranger. Danger was this man's specialty. So they never lost or double-crossed the man from Laramie.
Frank Capra once said, it's an interesting quote, he said that Jimmy Stewart's gift was, quote, the ability to act what he's saying as though he just thought of it. It looked as if there was no acting at all.
Yeah, that's the thing I've always felt. And it's sometimes confused with the idea of just playing yourself or your natural or something. You get that every once in a while. Well, making a movie is the most unnatural thing that could be. You know, you're up here doing it with the cameras, with the lights and everything. I've always felt that if you can do it and not have the acting show, that's the thing Fonda and I always felt. If you can do the scene and not have the acting show, then believability starts sneaking in. And if you've got people believing what you're doing up there and what's happened up there, well, you know you're in very good shape.
But so they say that the hard thing in acting is honesty. Once you've learned to fake that, you've got everything. I mean, that's the hardest thing in the world, as you say. How do you make it seem natural? How do you make it seem as if I'm not reading a script? I'm talking.
This is learning the craft. Really, I have no other explanation of it. It's learning the craft and sort of developing a judgment about, as you study the script, as you study, you are able to, by experience and by sort of your time of learning, you're able to pick this little thing. Maybe it's a line, maybe it's a reaction or anything. You're able to do that, and you never go and say, would it be all right for me to do this? You pull it on the director and see if he likes it.
You don't talk about it before?
No. No, I think that's a part of the job of the actor. Hitchcock always said that. But somebody said, Hitchcock, the thing about actors are cattle, that everybody. And Hitch, he never said. He said, I don't believe that. Actors aren't cattle. Actors should be treated as cattle. Well, I think what he means is that he does the setup, he writes the script, he's got the whole story in mind, everything, and as soon as the set's lit and everything, he says, all right, come on, get in and do this is what you're being paid for, go on and do it. And like a cowboy herding a bunch of cattle into a corral. And that's all right, I believe that. Hitchcock, that's the way he works. He'd come up to me every once in a while and say, Jim, the scene's tired. And I knew exactly what it meant. No pace, and drawn out too much. But this isn't a long discussion about what motivates you to stretch things out. I don't know. He said, the scene's tired. And invent all sorts of things. I remember at the end of Rear Window, I had the broken leg and all the things. Then it was called at the end of the picture. And the guy, Raymond Burr, comes over and throws me on. Hitch came up and said, Jim, what would you think of breaking the other leg when he throws you out the window? It's fine. So it took time, so I ended up to the. But this is just improvisation, and it wasn't in the script. It just came to his mind.
Over the years, you co-starred with all the special women. And let me ask you, just to give me thumbnail sketches, if you will, about a few of them. Marlene Dietrich.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing, and she knew more, technically, she knew more about pictures than almost anybody I've ever seen. She taught me, and to think like we're doing now, over shoulder, or maybe much closer than this, just a close over shoulder shot, to always keep your eyes on one eye, on the down stage eye toward the camera, because you can't look. They say you look a person in the eye. You can't do that. You've got to shift. Your two eyes can't look at the two eyes separately. You've got to go, and by doing that, you shift and you go from one to the other, and it's very distracting. I never knew it until she showed me in one of the rushes. But she noticed that. Just keep your eye on the downstage eye of the person you're playing to. She knew lighting, like I've never. She showed that should be a little over here. That should be. She's great girl. And do anything. Right? The fight we had. Fight she had with Una Merkel and Destry Rides Again, she never asked for any double or anything. She did the whole thing herself.
How about Jean Arthur?
Jean Arthur was just humor. This is it's so humor without being a comedian, you know, or it's just I suppose a lot of it it's born in you. Because I don't, to develop humor, real humor, I would think it would be very difficult unless you sort of had that humor. I don't know, it's humor in your outlook on life, humor about every things that happen every day. But Jean had that. She knew where the humor should fit.
How about Carole Lombard?
Same thing, the humor. This beautiful girl, beautiful, wonderful. But I did a thing with quite a serious picture. But she kept it from getting dire and getting down with that wonderful humor.
How about Katharine Hepburn?
She had probably, or has, just all the qualities, the humor, the glamour. There, again, I don't know what that is, but she had glamour, and very positive in her thinking, very positive, and if she thought a scene went well, she'd say so. If she didn't, she didn't. And
difficult or no?
Not difficult. No, not difficult, but just letting people know that this is what she thinks, and let's do something about it.
How about Grace Kelly?
Grace Kelly, bless her heart, I couldn't believe couldn't believe when I did that picture with Rear Window. This was her 5th picture. It was my 40th or something like that. But the idea that this girl could come out and in 5 pictures, they come just right up there with the top ones. Amazing, wonderful, warm, beautiful quality to it.
How about Kim Novak?
Everybody sort of, for a while when she was just starting, everybody said, well, you know, she's a beautiful girl and everything, but the acting is little. Hitchcock was going to use Vera Miles, who he had signed
In Vertigo.
in Vertigo. And Vera was going to have a baby, so she thought she would go, but it was too far along, so she went. So Hitch tested Kim and liked her. And we'd been working on the picture about 3 days, and Kim came over to Hitch, was sitting down in his director's chair, and Kim said, Mr. Hitchcock, on this scene I'm doing with Jim Stewart, I don't think, the motivation that I have and what's I'm thinking about as I approach him, knowing what I do about myself and knowing what I do about Jim, the motivation isn't quite, and Hitchcock said, Kim, it's only a movie. And that did it with Kim, and Kim never mentioned it again, never mentioned motivation again, and was awful good in the picture. Excellent in the picture.
Let me back up from Kim Novak in the 50s and go back to World War II. The war started, and you were about the first big Hollywood star to enlist. How come?
How come? It's very simple. I was drafted.
It's a good reason.
It's the I say it's the only lottery I've ever won. I think there are millions and millions of drafts going on. My number was 326 out of that million. So I was drafted. I was underweight, and I just went to the guy and said, just don't put down the weight. I mean, it's not important. I'm nothing wrong with me physically.
I mean, let's get this clear, because the fact was you were so underweight that you might have been kept out of the military because of that, correct?
Yeah. Well, the military has certain, for height, they have certain weights.
Yeah.
That's
and you were off the scale. You were minimum.
I was off the scale, and everybody made a fuss about it and everything. But I just finally went to the guy at the draft office, and I said, please just put it up what it's supposed to be, and that's the last time I ever went on the scales in the Army. But it was about 9 months before Pearl Harbor. I served as an enlisted man, and because of my flying, I had about 400 hours and a commercial license. When we got in the war after Pearl Harbor, they gave me a commission. They have a thing in the Army, which they've had for a long time, extension courses that I was able to take while I was an enlisted man, so I got my commission that way. And they put me right in. I was at a Moffett Field in California, which was a basic training base, but they sent me up to Mather Field, which was right near Sacramento, and I instructed there for several months. Then they sent me to 4-engine school, and then flew bombardiers on the Norden bomb site was just being developed, and I helped flew bombardiers in getting used to using the site, and then finally went to Sioux City, Iowa, and was given a bomber squadron.
And flew how many missions over Germany?
20.
With your heart in your mouth each time, or no?
It's just the same thing as I said. Stage fright. It's terrible before you get on stage. And I think it was the same. It wasn't any good at all the night before the mission, but the minute I got in the airplane and got everything and got briefed and everything, and I did a lot of praying. But I was worried more about making a mistake than for my life, really, because in the kind of operation that we did over there, that making a mistake, you could wipe out a lot of lives.
you had a very, very distinguished war record, and it's been suggested that your war experience may account for more complex roles and performances after the war. That thereafter, we saw more the dark side or the frailty of Jimmy Stewart in movies. Do you believe it was? Not that that's why you did it, but that it turned out in some sense to be a turning point for you?
I suppose I certainly didn't feel it at the time, but I think a lot had to do with maturity. I'd matured. I was 31 or something, 32 when I went in, and 4 years later, there's maturity there, and it could very well have had something to do about the type of picture.
One of the things that you did when you came back, and this is a few years later in 1950, is you went back to Broadway for the first time in 15 years and did Harvey with that invisible rabbit. How come?
I was back, and Frank Fay had been playing, I think, 4 years, something like that. But I came back and saw the picture, and I saw the play, and the producer, Brock Pemberton, in between the acts, came down and said, "How do you like it?" I said, "It's the most wonderful thing I've ever seen in my life." He said, "Well, why don't you play it?" I said, "Any time. I'd love more." I thought he was kidding. 2 weeks later, he called me and said, "Frank Fay hasn't had a vacation, and come back here and do the play for 4 weeks so he can take a vacation." I was right back, and I rehearsed with Pemberton. I never got to rehearse with the whole cast until 2 days before it went on. The play opened and everything. I got absolutely murderous, awful reviews. They weren't only terrible because my acting, but they say, how dare he fill in for this Frank Fay, who is Elwood P. Dowd. But the audience was fine, and and I sort of got into it a little better and everything. And I said, all right. Well, the next summer, Brock called me and said that Frank got into a sort of a bad habit with that vacation. He wants to take another one when you come back. And I said, sure. So I went back, and he invited the critics back. Same reviews, terrible. But it didn't discourage me, because it gave me sort of an inside track on the movie when they sold the movie. I never thought the real idea of Harvey and Elwood was as good in the movie as it is on the stage, because it's something you really have to create. And in movies, the idea of the supernatural, the idea of the invisible thing, it's done so much, and people realize that it can be done in all sorts of ways in the movie. But in the play, it's a real challenge. And I fell in love with the play.
I was going to ask you that, because, I mean, you did the movie, and then you came back in the 70s and did revivals. What's so special about that play to you?
It just absolutely, how can I describe it? The idea that you're faced with this, you're faced with this challenge, and that is to make the audience feel that you have this rabbit beside you, and that he's there. And I could tell when it was working. And it's one of the biggest thrills I've ever had in acting, because I could tell the audience was with me, and they saw it. Saturday afternoon matinees were no good. This is tough. This is when the mother says to the son, like this, come and the son, what's it going to be about? And they said, well, this man has this friend, and he was a big white rabbit. Oh, and the kid said, fine. I knew it was coming every Sunday, and because I could see kids getting restless and kids whispering, and every once in a while, the voice would come out from a 9, 8, 7-year-old, where's the rabbit? So I was dead for the rest of the performance.
That would shoot it all, huh?
That wiped it out.
One other thing you did about that same time in 1950, I think it was, is that you broke some new ground. You started, instead of taking a straight salary in movies, taking a percentage of the gross. And you were, I think, about the first actor to do that.
No, it had been done before.
Not often. How did that come about?
My agent who was Lou Wasserman, who is now the MCA Corporation, who is now head of Universal. He worked the thing out.
And I mean, what did you think of that? I suppose in some sense it's taking a risk rather than that straight salary.
Well, he convinced me that it was worth the chance, and it proved more or less successful.
Starting in '49, you made over the course of the next 10 years, I guess, 4 movies with Hitchcock. What was he like to work with?
Well, he had his own, as I say, about the actors or cattle. I never saw him look through a camera. I'd look through the finder in the camera. He would just do this, and his Bob Burks, his cameraman, would stand behind him. Hitchcock would say, I want that. And this included the scene. And then go and sit in his chair and wait until Burks had the scene lit and everything, and then he would say, all right, the actors go on, move around there and see how it feels. And this happened everything. Hitchcock always wore a blue suit and a tie. He knew the play, he knew the script so well that he was a terrible problem for the script girl, because Hitchcock, like John Ford, didn't have too much respect for the spoken word, which I think is sort of an advantage in both of them, because Ford said this, that if you can't get a scene up there on the screen without using the spoken word, if you can't get it and tell the story visually without relying on the spoken word, you're not using the medium correctly. And I think that Hitch felt the same way, because it is a visual thing, and it should tell you the story visually.
What did he give you much input or much freedom? You tell the story about Kim Novak, but I mean, what did he see your role as pretty much say what's written, or was he willing to listen to suggestions, and did he appreciate emoting on that?
No, it was perfectly open to suggestions, but he sort of liked you to go in and do it the way you had sort of worked out the way you're going to do it. If he didn't like it, he'd tell you so. If he thought it was all right, he wouldn't say anything, but he'd say, all right, let's roll the camera.
Your roles in those movies, and I guess especially in Rear Window and Vertigo, are among your most complex and your most vulnerable. What do you think of those roles?
It was a challenge, and I think Hitch, I give the credit to Hitchcock. I mean, it just he spent months and months and months on the script. So it was, and knew every line of it, and knowing that he knew what he wanted to see on the screen, it was a challenge to try and give him what he wanted and give it to him quick. He almost cut the picture in the camera. There never many takes, and there never two cameras, and the film at the rushes, they didn't last very long because he just cut and never the long shot, then over shoulder shot, then close up. No.
He knew what he wanted.
If it was necessary, as far as Hitchcock was concerned, he'd do it. But the spoken word out of the story, I remember doing Man Who Knew Too Much with Doris Day. And we were in the Albert Hall in London. And the London Symphony was playing. There's going to be an assassination, and the signal is the cymbals. And all that time I'm going up the steps to the balcony with Doris, and I have this long speech which sort of clears up a lot of the mystery about the kidnapping of our child and everything. And after I'd done it a couple of times in rehearsal, Hitch came to me and he said, "You're talking so much that I'm unable to enjoy the London Symphony. So just cut all the talk off." And I said, "Hitch, isn't it important here? I'm sort of winding up the idea and leading up to the assassination." He said, just chase Doris up the stairs. Don't say anything." And of course he was right. He was completely right. You know, the symphony was building and building. If I had been talking or anything, he would have to cut down the volume of the music to hear me. When this way, the symphony was up at the right level, and I was chasing Doris up the stairs. And much better.
Were those, and I think particularly of Vertigo, where you're playing this detective who's lost his nerve and has this mental problem of vertigo, and the whole strange feeling for Kim Novak. Was that a much harder part to play than Jefferson Smith in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
No, I don't think so.
I guess what I'm asking is, are tortured people harder to play than maybe what seems on the screen as simpler people?
I never thought of it that way, but I don't know. Looking back over the things I've done and so on, I've sort of come up with the thing that I sort of tend to hitch on to the parts, the roles, where vulnerability is the big factor. And this goes for, Westerns and all such ones. So you sort of read in and play into your role vulnerability. You're not, so the audience is with you, but they're not sure you're going to make it. They're not, but I think that there again, work, learning, practice.
Do you have a favorite Hitchcock movie?
Probably Rear Window, I would think.
During the 50s and 60s, you made a lot of Westerns, and you said, let me get the quote right, that a Western is the most honest thing that can go on film. What do you mean by that?
I don't remember ever saying that, but it's, I suppose, true. I think it's the best example that we have of telling the story visually. Because in a Western, nobody says anything, and it's done visually. So that this, along with the idea that the Western can be worldwide because you don't need the spoken word, so you don't have the language problem. And the Western is a sort of, most of the Westerns are a story of the settlement of our country and what happened, which I think this is interesting to people all over the world.
When Liberty Valance rode to town, the women folk would hide, they'd hide. When Liberty Valance walked around, the men would step aside, 'cause the point of a gun was the only law that Liberty understood. When it came to shooting straight and fast, he was mighty good. From out of the east a stranger came, a law book in his hand. Oh man, the kind of a man the West would need to tame a troubled land. 'Cause the point of a gun was the only law that Liberty understood. When it came to shooting straight and fast, he was mighty good. Many a man would face his gun, and many a man would fall. The man who shot Liberty Valance, he shot Liberty Valance. He was the bravest of them all. The love of a girl can make a man stay on when he should go. Stay on, just trying to build a peaceful life where love is free to grow. But the point of a gun was the only law that Liberty understood. When the final showdown came at last, a law book was no good. Alone and afraid, she prayed that he'd return that fateful night. Ah, that night, when nothing she said could keep her man from going out to fight. From the moment a girl gets to be full grown, the very first thing she learns, when two men go out to face each other, only one returns. Everyone heard two shots ring out, one shot made Liberty fall. The man who shot Liberty Valance, he shot Liberty Valance. He was the bravest of them all. The man who shot Liberty Valance, he shot Liberty Valance. He was the bravest of them all.
You know, you talk about the visual. Can you get as much satisfaction as an actor in a good reaction shot, a piece of physical business, as you can in a long speech? I mean, is that as challenging and mean as much to you?
I think it's just as challenging. It's just as challenging, and it's not the idea of taking a chance, but the speech, the long speech. You sort of work this out, but taking a chance on a little different look, on a little different. This is, I think, more challenging than the long speeches and so on.
You did work on westerns with John Ford. What was he like?
Well, he was very, very special. He didn't follow the rules of movie making. He just made his own. He, as I say, he hated the spoken word. He usually you talk about, and there's so many of them, you talk about how is it on the set. The complete tranquility on the set, and everything moves. Ford didn't agree with that at all. Ford wanted tension on the set. This is why he got a certain feeling that is Ford and nobody else is. He wanted tension. Well, and he got it in all sorts of ways. He'd get on poor Duke Wayne on it and just get him so embarrassed and so terrible that Duke would, and they loved each other. God, they devoted to each other, but he would just come out and everybody would say, gosh, I wonder when's it going to happen to me and everything. And that this is the way he worked. This is the way the tension, not only with the actors, but with all the crew members and everything. He used this to his advantage in getting it on film.
Well, in Liberty Valance, it sure seemed to work, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. He was on Duke the whole time. Duke would come up to me and say, "What the hell did why does it always have to be on me? Why didn't it get on you?" Sometimes I said, I don't know. I don't know. But we got near the end of the picture, and Duke was still on Duke. And Ford, the fellow named Woody Strode, black actor, a wonderful guy and an excellent actor. And in the last scene of the picture, Woody comes out in overalls. And Ford, for some reason, called me over and he said, what do you think of that, the costume on Woody? Now, why I said this, I don't know. I said, it looks a little Uncle Remusy, doesn't it? He said, I see, it does. And he motioned the assistant director to blow the whistle. And he got everybody around, the crew, everybody. And he said, I just wanted to make a statement that probably you haven't noticed. We have a racist in our company. I didn't know it until just a few minutes ago. Each one of you can treat him the way you feel like it, but I just wanted you to know that. Now we'll get back to work. And Duke came up to me and said, he finally got you. Yeah.
You have been a star now for 50 years. How do you account for your longevity at the top of the business?
Number one, there's sort of a love and devotion to what I'm doing. I also feel that an actor never stops learning. In other words, some people say that, or ask the question, when did you know that you had reached the top? I never thought of it in those terms. I think that you don't reach the top. An actor never finished learning his craft.
But why you? I mean, you're obviously a very, very good actor, craftsman, as you say, and you obviously have uncommon energy and persistence over a long period of time. But why do you think it is that of all the actors, that you were one of those very few that people wanted to go see? over and over again?
I-
I'm asking you not to brag. I'm really asking you to analyze.
No, I just, as I said before, I just think of it, I have a certain devotion to the business of acting.
And do you think that to the audience that comes through?
I think because I have tremendous respect for the audience, and I believe that just like I said, when I knew that it was getting to the audience, but that I had Harvey next to me, I can tell by fan letters. I try and read all my fan mail, answer it all, but I can tell from that I'm coming through every once in a while.
I think it was Spencer Tracy who once said that the key thing for an actor is to get people, the audience, to like you, to root for you, to feel that they're on the same team with you in some sense. Do you think that was part of your appeal?
I think probably. I think that, I think just getting back to the idea of complete devotion to what you're doing and trying your best.
But you also, and this gets, I suppose, back to our discussion earlier about Frank Capra, have a strong sense that good, strong family values, family, honor, country should be in movies, yes?
I go along with Frank on all those things, yeah. I think they're important, and they're important, and they're worthwhile, and worthwhile presenting if you learn in learning your craft. If you can learn to get those values up on the screen, I think that's important.
What would you hope that your legacy would be on acting? That young actors who look in years ahead towards Jimmy Stewart and the body of work that you've done, what would you hope that they could learn from it?
Well, I think that I got this probably with my father. He said one of the most important things in your life is work, hard work. And don't expect too much without making an effort to make it happen, whatever you're approaching. I suppose that I have a hard time figuring out how to say it. The work, I think, and devotion to your profession. Have as you grow from experience and work in your profession, have it mean something to you more than just a way of making a living. Have it mean something more to you.
Which brings me to what I guess may be my last question. As Frank Capra might ask, has it been a wonderful life for you?
Yes, it has. I thank God every night for that.
Do you feel, when you think of all the actors and all the things you've done, and we've just touched on the very surface of it over the course of those 50, 60, 70, 76 years, I mean, do you ever think, why me, and feel blessed and lucky?
I have taken my hat off to luck. There's been a lot of that in my life. But I believe there's been a lot of work, a lot of hard work. I believe that I've developed a dedication to my work that I'm proud of.
And you really do sit there and thank God.
Thank God.
Jimmy Stewart, thank you very much.
Clarence! Clarence! Help me, Clarence! Get me back! Get me back! I don't care what happens to me! Get me back to my wife and kids! Help me, Clarence, please! Please! I want to live again! I want to live again! I want to live again! Please, God, let me live again.